Hello, everyone. Welcome back. And today I am so pleased to share this space with Teal. Teal is one of the previous members of the Period Comeback Protocol and the HA community. She reached out to me and Jade because she was going through hypothalamic amenorrhea and she wanted to become a mom. And she's here today to share her story of how she got a natural period and how she got naturally pregnant. So first of all, welcome, Teal. How are you?
Thanks, Claudia. I'm great. Thanks for having me.
And do you want to share where you are at with your pregnancy at the moment? How far along are you?
So I'm just at 15 weeks, just a little bit over 15 weeks. So just getting into my second trimester and feeling a little better.
15 weeks, which means that you're still 4 weeks away to feel the baby moving inside your tummy, and that's going to be
Right.
a wonderful experience as well. It's going to make it even more real than it currently is.
Right. Oh, for sure.
Yeah. So we're here today because we would like to discuss what happened over the past 6 months and over the past few years, and to really motivate women that are going through the HA recovery journey to reach out or to actually do the things to get the support and to follow the protocol so they can get what they want. So can you start by sharing with us how you lost your period and for how long?
Sure. So I don't have one specific time or actual thing that I know for sure that caused me to lose my period, but there's several factors. And it started with back when I was in college, I was doing a lot of running and a little bit of restriction on what I was eating, and kind of started to get into this mentality of just wanting to be really, really skinny and being able to kind of manipulate that by running a lot and eating very low calorie. After I got a little bit older and kind of realized a little bit more about nutrition and health, I realized that that wasn't the right way to go. And I got really into just eating healthy, even if it was high calorie, but I was still exercising a lot, and I got really into weightlifting. But the problem was I got really into fasting. So I was skipping breakfast and just drinking black coffee on an empty stomach. And working out fasted at like 6 o'clock in the morning, and then not eating afterwards, not eating until like 12:30 p.m. So I wasn't feeling my body. So there was just a lot of different factors and just a lot of stress that kind of added on top of it that definitely resulted in me losing my period in some way or the other.
And thank you for sharing that. And I'm actually wondering, when you were fasting and working out in the morning, how was your energy level?
So at the time, I thought my energy level was great. I think I had a lot of cortisol kind of in me in the morning, where I thought, oh, I can do this all the time. I don't need food. All I need is my cup of coffee in the morning. But if I didn't have that cup of coffee, I would not make it at all. And I felt as if I could only work out in the morning. I can never work out in the afternoon or in the evening. It only could happen in the morning, fasted after a strong black cup of coffee.
And I really resonate with that story because it's very similar to mine. I used to wake up at 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock in the morning to get a good 60 to 90 minutes of exercise between interval training and strength training. And then I would have a cup of coffee and basically ate nothing until after 12 o'clock. And I had lots of energy, or at least I thought that I had steady and abundant energy. The reality is that I was living off cortisol and adrenaline, so I had this very wired type of energy that made me really cranky around people, not so pleasant with my husband. And I realized after a while that I was really hangry, meaning that just before having a meal, I was ready to kill anyone that would come my way. And I just needed to eat. And that's something that I wanted to underline, because lots of women, when they start this process, they think, well, I have energy, I'm feeling great, so nothing is wrong. And the reality is that it's very important to understand, okay, maybe you have the energy, but are you sleeping well? Are you feeling anxious? Is your brain consumed with body image thoughts and food thoughts? So thank you for really for sharing that part of your experience, because I think that lots of women are really going to click with that. Teal, when did you realize that not having a period was kind of a problem?
So I started realizing it when I did decide to, start a family with my husband, and I got off of birth control. And after a while, it was not returning, and I was doing all of these extra things where I, still got really into my health kick. I had a health kick, and then I got really into it, like the functional medicine where you do elimination diets, you take a lot of supplements. So I was taking food sensitivity tests and spending a lot of money trying to get my period back. And thinking that, oh, I just need, an extra month or so, and I'll just take some supplements, I'll be fine. Or maybe I should, eliminate the food sensitivity, the foods that were on my food sensitivity test, which were like very low sensitivity. And they were some of my favorite foods, like sweet potatoes and almonds and eggs, which are all like really great foods. And so I eliminated those, spent lots of money on supplements, was already very low carb, and then went even more low carb. Then I realized, okay, none of this is working. This is such a waste of time and money. And there's something else underlying, and why am I not getting it back? Because it's been about, I think 4 or 5 months, I realized I got to that point where it still didn't come back after I got off of birth control.
Would you be able to share with us how much did you spend between the sensitivity test and the supplements on a ballpark, just out of curiosity?
I would say probably, well, if you want to add in the fact that I went to go see an OBGYN, and basically after doing some lab tests immediately referred me to a fertility specialist, without really trying to find any other reason, because all my blood work was wrong. My blood work was fine pretty much, except for my estrogen was low. So that's a side note. But so adding on top of spending money on those lab tests because insurance wasn't paying for it, I would say probably $1,200. I would say US dollars.
And it's pretty a high amount of money, especially because you didn't see any results. And even though lots of women, they say, well, I cannot afford coaching or I cannot afford help. My question normally is, how much are you spending by simply being sick and being stuck in the situation where you're in? And personally speaking, I even ended up doing the Dutch test and the DNA testing. And that cost me such a massive amount of money, and obviously didn't show anything that was helpful for my situation. So, Teal, what made you reach out to Jade and I, and to really allow yourself to get some guidance?
So like many girls, I did discover the No Period Now What book after doing a lot of Googling and Facebook searching and Instagram searching, and came across the book. And I read it and I was like, wow, this is me. Like, this is it. So that was a real big eye opener. I didn't agree with everything from the book. So not everything convinced me in that book, but I knew I had it. And I knew that there were general principles I needed to follow and I needed to change. And I knew what I needed to do. And I pretty much believed that I could start implementing those changes on my own, but I realized I would be a mess without the support. And that's when I started realizing I needed to reach out to, someone that specializes not just in kind of like the nutritional side to it, but just kind of the emotional support, that mindset support as well, to kind of keep pushing me forward. I needed that encouragement because I'm someone that can be very indecisive and doubt myself a lot. So I really needed just that extra push. It wasn't like I wasn't able to do some of the changes on my own, but I knew that I would not be successful if I didn't have like the support, the community, all the resources. I just needed that extra person to talk to. Otherwise, I'd drive my husband crazy because I didn't want to really talk to anyone else about it. My friends or family, and my husband can only do so much. So
yeah, absolutely. And what made you really scared at the beginning of the journey? After you read the book No Period No what were you afraid of implementing more than anything else?
So, one of the things that, well, I was definitely afraid of gaining weight absolutely for sure. That's the biggest thing. I did not want to gain weight. And I did not want to get to what they said was the fertile, BMI or something that they mentioned in the book. And I didn't want to have to just completely eliminate like all of my activity and just eat junk food all day, because that was kind of something that kind of rubbed me the wrong way a little bit in the book, although I'm very grateful for that book. So I don't mean to be hating on it, but I felt like there's got to be a better way than just stuffing my face with muffins and cupcakes and cookies and ice cream all day and not allowing myself like a 10-minute walk to the store or something like that, just because that would require movement. So that was what kind of scared me, because I was like, there's got to be a different way, and I don't want to go down that route completely.
And I agree on so many levels with what you just shared, especially because you were trying to get your period back to have a baby. So when you started working with us, you are already in the preconception window. And I normally advise women in the preconception window to really start supporting their hormones for a good 3 months before getting pregnant. And supporting your hormones doesn't always mean sitting in the couch, eating ice cream and cupcakes and not doing any movement, because that's sometimes counterproductive to your egg quality and to your mental health as well. So you decided to reach out, you had the first call with me, you had the first call with Jade, you joined the HA community. But the reality is that even though you started working with us, it wasn't a straight line. It wasn't everything onky-dory. So can you share with us where you struggled the most? When did you have a moment where you thought, I don't know if I can do this?
Yeah, I definitely felt like I'm just some very impatient person to begin with. So after about 3 or 4 weeks, I was
Where is my
like,
period?
yeah, like I was like, I just had this feeling that it would work for every other girl, but it wouldn't for me, just because of me, just because of my luck. I just didn't think it would be in the cards for me, even if I implemented all the changes and did all the right things. So, that's where I struggled, because I continued to doubt myself a lot. And it was, and also, every single time, I think for me, what triggered me was seeing pictures of myself, because I wouldn't always notice it in the mirror or something like that, because I really just tried to be a little bit more neutral to myself. But when I would see pictures from a different perspective, that's where I would start kind of doubting the whole process, and in being like, do I really want to gain weight? Because I'm just not happy with myself. So the body image part was the hardest part. It wasn't necessarily the eating. I was able to eat. It wasn't, I like to eat. That wasn't really hard. And I was kind of okay with sleeping in a little bit. I kind of got used to a new routine and actually getting more sleep. And I noticed the benefits, especially in the morning, just having a more relaxing morning. But it was still the mindset kind of in my head and the body image that I struggled with.
Yeah. And I do remember in some of the calls in the HA community, you actually needed that extra convincing. Am I doing the right thing? Am I eating the right food? Am I doing enough? Am I doing too much? And that's fair enough, because I remember feeling exactly the same, having the same thoughts back in the past, which is one of the reasons because I ended up creating the HA community, because it's so much easier when you're going through a process and you have a group of women and professionals telling you, yeah, just keep on doing it, keep on doing it. So can you share with us what really helped you to get to the finish line instead of giving up and going back to your old habits?
Yeah, so I think patience is one of the things. I will say patience is easier said than done, though. But what really did help me was I made it a point to make sure that I was interacting in the HA community, whether it was with you, with Jade, or with the other girls in the HA community on a weekly basis. So that could have been the group call. It could have been a call with you or Jade. It could just be sending a message to you or Jade, or even reaching out to one of the girls. I think I knew that I needed to put the work into it, and I needed to initiate some of those, conversations to make sure that I felt supported. Because also sometimes I felt like even if I wasn't the one receiving the help, if I was able to help other girls or give my little advice that maybe I kind of learned in the past few weeks being in the community, it was really rewarding to me. So just having that mutual support was really helpful. Sometimes it's easier to give advice than to take advice. But I think it really just helped me become really passionate about it. And I think that's what kind of kept me going. Like, that's what kept me motivated to just keep doing what I'm doing. And I also began to share it a little bit with my friends from back home, just a few. And I think just being able to share that out loud and being a little bit more comfortable with it, sharing it with my mom, which was, sometimes a pain point for me. So just being able to share that really kind of helped. And just being a part of the community kind of gave me that motivation to do so.
So you really decided to embrace vulnerability, and you started sharing, supporting, and receiving support, because that's as you said, it's much easier giving support than actually receiving it and welcoming it. So you did a fantastic job. And do you want to share with the ladies in the community, how long did it take you to get your first period back?
Sure. So I think it took me about 7 weeks to get my first period. So it did actually come quicker than I ended up thinking, even though I was impatient in the beginning, and I was very, very surprised. So I was not expecting it at all, but yeah.
Yeah. And can you tell us about the second period?
Well, I guess the second period didn't really happen. So, but the reason is because I found out I was pregnant. So after that first period, I started tracking pretty meticulously, and with the help of you, Claudia, because I didn't always understand some of the science behind basal body temperature and looking at the signs and symptoms. So I would always kind of like send you screenshots of my app to kind of see if this makes sense and get your opinions on it. And I always thought that was really helpful. So just throughout that time, I was kind of tracking, and I learned from you and just from some of the resources and just talking from the girls in the group. And then I guess towards the end of that cycle, because I was tracking my BBT, I noticed it just continued to stay high. And I did see a dip. It wasn't the clearest dip. It wasn't like you might see on Google. And that's kind of what was nice to kind of share with you. And it's not as clear cut as what you might see online. So I think you also you have to be kind of understanding and patient that your body symptoms and signs aren't going to look like perfect to a T. Yeah. But, because I was tracking and stuff like that, I noticed it kept staying high towards the end, and I was like, okay, so I should get my period, but nope, it kept staying high. And then, yeah, I think I waited like a week. I was almost afraid to take a test because I was like, there's no way, I don't want to be disappointed. But then I did, and positive. And
how did you share it with your husband?
Nothing too creative or anything. But basically I shared, it was a Friday night. I waited all week. I waited to Friday morning to finally take the test, because I didn't want to distract myself with work. And so then after Friday after work, he was kind of just like, what do you want to do tonight? And I'm just like, I don't know. What do you want to do? And this happens all the time. What do you want to do? And then I was like, well, do you want to be a dad? And then he's like, what? And he was like real confused. And then I showed him the positive pregnancy test. And then he kind of got the hint and was very, very pleasantly surprised.
Tears are coming. It's such a beautiful experience to live. And I'm so happy for both of you. It must have been one of the best weekends of your life. And what you mentioned before about the that your basal body temperature didn't look like it sometimes looks on Google. That's very important as well, because there are lots of women that are using apps just to see where their cycle is sitting at. But because the app are based on a 28-day cycle, sometimes they expect to ovulate at day 13 and 14, but some women, they do ovulate on day 22, day 23, which is still within the healthy range. So what you just mentioned is super important to underline. Thank you for that.
I think I ovulated on like day 24 or something.
There we go. So you're the living proof.
So I was very scared. I was like, oh no, am I not ovulating? I didn't think so, but nope, it just takes time.
Yeah. And I do ovulate as well between day 20 and 25. So it depends on the month, depending on how well you slept, or the kind of foods that you have, or where you're traveling, how much you have been working. So we are not robot, and the period sometimes is also, and we need to welcome that flexibility even when it comes to our lifestyle and our period health. Now, Teal, it has been such a pleasure having you here today. One last question. If you could go back in time, what would you tell yourself back in January, let's say? What would you say?
Yeah, I would tell myself this, and I would honestly keep reminding myself to do this, because this is something that is a work in progress, but just being kind to myself. I really need I realized I really needed to work on that. Allow myself a break and to rest, and just be nice, just be nice to myself. I picked apart all of my issues with, my body or just anything. Like I kind of lack confidence, and looking back, I would just try to be a little bit more kind, and I want to make sure that I'm continuing to do that to myself in pregnancy and beyond, because I want to be a good role model as a mom. Because I know children absorb that information really easily, and they will pick up on that if their mother is not being kind to themselves, and that would cause them to maybe not be kind to themselves. And I would never want them to have that low self-esteem like I had to experience. So that's what I would definitely tell myself.
It's so beautiful, because you have decided to stop generational trauma. And my oldest daughter, she's six very soon. She's going to school already. And there are 5 years old little girls or 6 years old little girls that are already describing themselves as fat, or they sometimes starve themselves because they don't want to be judged by others. And that's a shame, because it means that for many years ahead, they're gonna have to deal with those type of self-esteem, let's call them issues for the lack of a better word. And what you mentioned, self-compassion, it's so underrated. And I believe that 50% of the population doesn't really know what self-compassion is. And it's something that they should teach in school. As much as the period, like period health and self-compassion, should be part of the curriculum in schools, for sure, the way that I see it, obviously.
Absolutely. Yeah, I agree. It's not, you don't have to be like, oh my God, I love myself, and be super selfish and everything like that. And I think some people feel like that's what it is. And they don't realize that self-compassion is different than just being like egocentric and, just loving yourself. Like you can kind of be just kind. You don't have to be like, oh my God, I'm the hottest person in the world. Like you can just be like, okay, neutral and accepting, and just at least just be kind. That's all.
Yeah, self-compassion doesn't look like on Instagram going to Bali to meditate for a week and only eating raw food, but sometimes it's simply being okay, setting boundaries, going to sleep a little bit earlier, telling yourself that you're doing great when you're having a bad day, or simply sitting with your thoughts and having a warm cup of tea. That's how unsexy it is, but it's a game changer. I appreciate you so much, Teal, and I'm so happy that you brought self-compassion up at the end of this live, because I think that it's going to be so well received. So I would like to wish you good luck for the remaining 6 months, and I hope to keep seeing you here in this community anyway.
Yeah, thank you so much. I'm happy to be here. Thank you. I appreciate all your help and support.
Thank you, Teal. Bye.